Millionaire follows his special daughter after school, and what he sees makes him cry. Richard Thompson always believed he was protecting his daughter the best way he could. The successful businessman from Chicago had built an empire of furniture stores, but he felt like a complete failure when it came to Emily, his 11-year-old daughter with Down syndrome. That March afternoon, he decided to do something he'd been thinking about for weeks. He parked his car 2 blocks from the private school Emily attended and walked until he hid behind a large tree on the opposite sidewalk. He needed to understand what the girl did on her way home, because lately she was always 40 minutes late, and her explanations were too vague to ease her father's worried heart. When the school gates opened and the children began to leave, Richard felt his heart race. Emily appeared with her pink backpack, her round glasses glinting in the afternoon sun, and her navy blue uniform, always impeccable thanks to Margaret, the nanny who insisted on ironing it perfectly every morning. The girl walked in the opposite direction of home, and Richard followed at a safe distance. Emily stopped in front of a small vacant lot between 2 houses, where Richard could see a few puppies playing among the dry leaves. The girl crouched down, opened her backpack and took out half of her lunch. The businessman watched as his daughter handed out pieces of bread and crackers to the little animals, talking to them as if they were old friends. The tenderness of the gesture made his chest tighten, but he stayed hidden, wanting to understand the whole situation before revealing himself. Then an elderly woman approached the girl from one of the nearby houses. Richard tensed, ready to intervene if needed, but what he saw left him completely confused. "Hi, Dorothy," Emily greeted, standing up to hug the woman. "Hello, my dear, how's your mother today?" "Mum's doing well, thank you for asking. And you? How was your night?" The conversation flowed naturally, as if the two had known each other for years. Richard observed the modest woman, dressed in simple but clean clothes, her grey hair tied in a low bun. She must have been around 60 and walked with some difficulty. "Emily, sweetheart, I need to thank you again for what you did yesterday," Dorothy said, holding the girl's hands in hers. "That soup you brought for my sister was a blessing. She ate it all and slept well the whole night." Richard's legs went weak. What soup? Emily had gone straight home from school the day before, or so he thought. "I'm glad she liked it, Dorothy. I learned how to make it from Margaret. She said vegetable soup helps when someone's feeling weak." "Your nanny taught you well, dear. And look." The woman pulled a crumpled bill from her apron pocket. "I managed to save these $5 to give you. I know you spent your lunch money on the ingredients." "You don't have to give me anything, Dorothy. I was happy to help." "Of course I do. Your mother gives you that money for your lunch, not to take care of a stubborn old woman like me." Richard was stunned. Emily had used her lunch money to buy ingredients and cook for a sick person? When? How? He monitored his daughter's every move, or at least he thought he did. "You're not stubborn," Emily protested, firmly refusing the money. "You're my friend, and friends help each other." The simplicity and determination in the girl's words made Richard swallow hard. His daughter, whom he considered too fragile to walk 2 blocks alone, stood there displaying an emotional maturity that completely astonished him. Dorothy kissed Emily's forehead and headed home, but not before waving at the puppies the girl was still feeding. Richard remained hidden, watching his daughter finish distributing the food and then sit on the sidewalk to play with the little animals. "You're growing so fast," Emily murmured, cradling one of the puppies. "Soon you'll find a good family to take care of you." The puppy licked the girl's face, drawing a joyful laugh from her. Richard had never seen his daughter so at ease, so natural. At home, Emily always seemed more reserved, perhaps sensing the constant worry he radiated. After about 20 minutes playing with the animals, Emily stood up, slung her backpack over her shoulder, and walked away. Richard followed from a distance, hoping she would finally head home, but the girl made another stop. This time she entered a small flower shop. Richard crossed the street and positioned himself to see through the window. Emily was chatting animatedly with a woman behind the counter, a dark-haired lady around 50 with curly hair and a warm smile. "How are you, Emily?" Richard heard the florist ask as he moved closer to the door. "Hi, Susan, I'm good, and how's George?" "Oh, sweetheart, he's feeling a bit down today. It's been 3 months since my mother-in-law passed, and some days the grief hits harder, you know." Richard watched his daughter nod understandingly, before pointing to a vase of red roses. "Can I take a rose for him? I have $2 here." "Of course, dear. Let me pick a really pretty one for you." Susan selected a rose that looked perfect and wrapped it in clear paper. When Emily held out the money, the florist waved it away. "Keep that money, sweetie. The rose is on the house. You always bring so much joy when you visit." "But Susan," "No buts. Go take this rose to George before he leaves to pick up the kids from school." Emily kissed the florist's hand in gratitude and left the shop. Richard followed her again, now completely intrigued. Who was this George? Where had his daughter met all these people? The answer came when Emily entered the school once more, but through the staff entrance. Richard waited a few minutes before approaching the front desk. "Excuse me," he said to the security guard. "I'm Richard Thompson, Emily's father. Did she forget something at school?" The guard, a young man in a blue uniform, smiled immediately. "Oh, Mr. Thompson, your daughter is an angel, you know. She came to bring a rose to George. Poor guy, he's been down today." "George?" "He's the school custodian. Lost his mother a few months ago, and some days it really hits him hard. Your daughter always finds a way to cheer him up." Richard felt a lump in his throat. His daughter had bought a rose with her own money to comfort a grieving school employee. When had she learned to be so empathetic, so attentive to others' feelings? "How long has she been doing this?" Richard asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Oh, since the start of the school year. Your daughter has a heart of gold. Last week she taught George how to write his mother's name. It was really moving." The guard's words hit Richard like a punch to the gut. Emily was teaching an adult to write. His daughter, whom he thought needed help with everything, was helping others. Emily left the school again, this time finally heading home. Richard followed from a distance, his mind racing with discoveries that shook all his certainties about his daughter. During dinner that night, Richard watched Emily with new eyes. The girl ate little, claiming she wasn't very hungry. He and his wife, Jennifer, attributed it to the heat of the day, but now Richard knew she had given half her snack to the puppies. "How was school today, sweetie?" asked Jennifer, scooping more rice onto her daughter's plate. "It was good, Mom. The teacher said our presentation on the environment turned out really cool." "That's great. And did you come straight home?" Richard waited for the answer, curious to see if his daughter would lie. "Yes, Mom. I just took a little longer because I stopped to see some puppies on the street." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Richard realized Emily was shielding her activities, perhaps sensing her parents wouldn't approve of her independence. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. In the following days, Richard kept following his daughter, always discovering something new that surprised him. On Tuesday, Emily stopped at a newsstand and bought an ice pop for a homeless boy sitting on the sidewalk. On Wednesday, she helped an elderly woman carry her groceries to the bus stop. On Thursday, Richard saw her talking to a group of younger kids, mediating an argument with a patience he never knew she had. With each discovery, the businessman felt smaller. His daughter, whom he had kept in a protective bubble, was living a life rich in relationships and experiences he knew nothing about. Worse still, she was making a difference in the lives of so many people. On Friday, Richard decided to confront the situation. He came home early and found Jennifer in the kitchen preparing dinner. "Jennifer, I need to talk to you about Emily." His wife, an elegant 42-year-old woman, stopped stirring the sauce and looked at him with concern. "Did something happen? Is she okay?" "She's fine, but..." Richard hesitated, unsure how to begin. "Did you know our daughter has a whole life we don't know about?" "What do you mean, Richard?" "She helps people, Jennifer. So many people. She buys food for stray dogs, makes soup for the sick, teaches school staff how to read, settles fights between kids." Jennifer dropped the spoon and turned fully to her husband. "How do you know all this?" Richard took a deep breath. He knew the confession wouldn't be well received. "Because I've been following her after school." The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer looked at her husband as if she didn't recognize him. "You what?" "Jennifer, I was worried. She always came home late and... Richard, you've been spying on our daughter. Jennifer's voice rose an octave. An 11-year-old child. I just wanted to understand. Understand what? Why she isn't the fragile little doll you want her to be? Jennifer's words hit Richard hard. She had touched exactly on the point he didn't want to admit. Maybe the problem wasn't with Emily, but with him. That's not it, Jennifer. It's just... Just what, Richard? Our daughter is doing wonderful things, helping people, being independent, and you're spying on her like she's a criminal. The argument was interrupted by Emily's arrival. She walked through the kitchen door with her backpack on and a smile on her face. Hi, Dad. Hi, Mum, she greeted, kissing them both. Why do you both look mad? Richard and Jennifer exchanged glances, unsure how to explain the situation. We're not mad, sweetie, said Jennifer, forcing a smile. Dad and I were just talking about work. Emily accepted the explanation and went to her room to change. As soon as she left, Jennifer turned her attention back to her husband. We'll talk about this later, and you're stopping this ridiculous pursuit right now. Richard nodded, but deep down he knew he couldn't simply forget everything he had discovered. His view of his daughter had completely changed, and he needed to process this new information. During dinner, he observed Emily more closely. The girl enthusiastically talked about her day at school, mentioning her friends, activities, and teachers. She was a normal child, living a normal life, but he had always treated her as if she were made of glass. Daddy, can I ask you something? Emily suddenly said. Of course, sweetheart. Why do you always worry when I go out? The question caught Richard off guard. He looked at Jennifer, who stared back, waiting for his response. I worry because I love you very much, Emily, and I want you to always be safe. But Daddy, I already know how to cross the street, and I know how to ask for help if I need it. My teacher taught me. I know you do, sweetheart. It's just... Richard stopped, realizing he didn't have a good answer. Why did he worry so much? Why did he think Emily wasn't capable? It's just that Daddy sometimes forgets you're growing up, Jennifer interjected. Isn't that right, Richard? That's true, Richard admitted. Sometimes I forget you're a very smart girl. Emily smiled and kept eating, satisfied with the answer. But Richard knew this conversation was far from over. That night, after Emily went to bed, Richard and Jennifer sat in the living room for the promised talk. Richard, what's going on with you? Jennifer began. Since when do you think it's okay to follow our daughter around? Jennifer, you don't understand. I found out things about her that... That what? That she's more capable than you think, that she has empathy, that she knows how to interact with people. Richard sighed, running his hands through his hair. Exactly that. She does things I never imagined she could do. And that bothers you? It doesn't bother me. It scares me. Jennifer moved closer to her husband on the couch. Why does it scare you, Richard? Because it means I've been wrong all this time. It means maybe I've been limiting her instead of protecting her. The words came out heavy with pain. Richard was confronting fears he had carried since Emily's birth. Fears about her limitations, her ability to navigate the world, her safety. Richard, remember when Emily was born and the doctor explained Down syndrome to us? Of course I remember. He said every child is unique, that some have more limitations, others fewer. That the important thing was to give her opportunities to grow. I know, Jennifer, but you focused on the possible limitations and forgot about her potential. Our daughter is showing you who she really is, and you're afraid to accept it. Richard knew his wife was right. For 11 years, he had built an image of Emily based on what she couldn't do, instead of discovering what she could. What do I do now, Jennifer? How do I fix 11 years of overprotectiveness? You start by trusting her, and you stop spying on her. Richard promised he would stop following his daughter, but the promise lasted only until the following Monday. This time, however, he was more careful not to get caught. Emily took her usual route, first the puppies, then the flower shop, then school to visit the janitor. But this time, she made a new stop. She went into a small diner on the corner near the school. Richard positioned himself to see inside the establishment. Emily walked up to the counter, where a middle-aged man greeted her with a smile. Hi, Emily, how are you? Hi, Mr. Walter. I'm good. I brought the money I promised. The girl pulled a few coins from her pocket and placed them on the counter. Richard counted silently in his head. It was $2 in small change. "Oh, my dear, you didn't have to rush. I said I could wait. But a promise is a promise, Mr. Walter. Mom always says that." "Your mother raised you well. The usual sugar bread?" "Actually, today I wanted a cream puff. It's for someone special." Richard watched the man wrap a freshly fried cream puff and hand it to Emily, along with a napkin. "Who's the special person today?" "It's Mrs. Margaret. She's been a little sad because her grandson is sick. I thought a sweet treat might cheer her up." Richard felt his chest tighten. Margaret had been Emily's nanny for 8 years, a 60-year-old woman who cared for the girl with motherly affection. And Emily was worried about her. "What a thoughtful girl," Mr. Walter said. "Margaret is very lucky to have you." "No, I'm the lucky one to have her. She teaches me so much." Emily carefully placed the cream puff in her backpack and said goodbye. Richard followed her home, watching as she handed the treat to Margaret in the kitchen. The nanny's reaction was immediate. She hugged Emily tightly, tears in her eyes. "My dear, how did you know I needed some kindness today? I noticed you seemed different this morning, and I remembered that when I'm sad, something sweet always helps." Richard watched from the kitchen doorway, moved. His daughter had picked up on the nanny's emotions and taken action to comfort her. What 11-year-old did that so naturally? That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He replayed every moment he'd witnessed, every discovery about Emily. For the first time, he was seeing his daughter as she truly was, not as his fears told him she should be. The next morning at breakfast, Richard observed the interaction between Emily and Margaret. The girl asked about the nanny's grandson, offered to help prepare a special tea that might make the child feel better, and suggested Margaret take some of Emily's storybooks to distract the boy. "Emily," Richard said suddenly, "how did you learn to care for people like this?" The girl paused her meal and looked at her father thoughtfully. "I don't know, Dad. I guess when you see someone sad, you want to help. Isn't that normal?" "It is normal, but not everyone does what you do." "Does what?" "Notices when others need help and acts on it." Emily shrugged, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Teacher always says we should be kind, and Mom and Margaret have always taught me to think of others." Richard glanced at Jennifer, who was watching him intently. His daughter was simply putting into practice the values they themselves had taught her. The difference was, she was doing it with an authenticity and consistency that amazed him. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, back to the story. A few days later, Richard received an unexpected call at work. It was from Emily's school. "Mr. Thompson, this is Emily's teacher, Barbara." Richard's heart immediately raced. "Is something wrong?" "No, don't worry, she's fine. Actually, I'm calling to invite you to a special meeting tomorrow morning." "What kind of meeting?" "The principal would like to speak with you and your wife about Emily, but I can tell you it's something very positive." Richard hung up, puzzled. A meeting about Emily that was positive. In his experience, school meetings usually meant trouble. The next day, Richard and Jennifer arrived at the school anxiously. They were greeted by the principal, a 50-year-old woman named Patricia, and the teacher, Barbara. "Thank you for coming," the principal said. "We wanted to talk to you about Emily." "Did she do something wrong?" asked Richard. "Quite the opposite. She did something extraordinary." The principal opened a folder on the table. "Did you know Emily has been acting as a sort of mediator here at school?" "What do you mean?" asked Jennifer. "She resolves conflicts between the children," explained the teacher, Barbara. "When there are fights or disagreements, the kids themselves seek Emily out to help settle things." Richard and Jennifer exchanged surprised glances. "Last week," the principal continued, 2 fourth-grade boys were fighting over a toy. The argument was getting ugly, with shoving and yelling. Emily stepped in and managed to get them talking and reaching an agreement. "How did she do that?" asked Richard. "She simply talked to each of them separately," the teacher replied. "She asked how they were feeling, what they really wanted, and then helped them find a solution that worked for both." That's amazing," Jennifer murmured. "But it doesn't stop there," said the principal. Emily has also been helping younger kids who struggle to adjust. There's a new girl at school, very shy, who couldn't make friends. Emily adopted her, and now she's completely settled in. Richard felt smaller and smaller in his chair. His daughter was doing things many adults couldn't manage. "We'd like to propose something," the principal said. "We'd love for Emily to be part of a pilot program for peer mediation. She'd be one of the students responsible for helping resolve minor conflicts." "But could she handle that?" Richard asked. "I mean, wouldn't it be too much responsibility?" Teacher Barbara smiled. "Mr. Thompson, Emily already does this naturally. We just want to give structure and recognition to something she's already doing on her own. Besides," the principal added, "the program includes basic training on communication and conflict resolution. It would be a growth opportunity for her." Jennifer looked at Richard, waiting for him to decide. The businessman took a deep breath. "If she wants to participate, we support her." "Wonderful. We'll talk to her today." As they left the school, Richard was silent. In the car, Jennifer spoke first. "Are you okay?" "I'm thinking." "About what?" "About how much I didn't know about our daughter. How many of her abilities I underestimated." Jennifer held her husband's hand. "Richard, don't blame yourself. You've always wanted to protect her." "But what if my protection was holding her back?" It was a painful but necessary question. Richard was beginning to realize that his love for his daughter, though genuine, might not have been expressed in the best way. That afternoon, when Emily came home from school, she ran to share the news. "Dad, Mom, the principal told me about this really cool program." "Tell us," said Jennifer. "I'm going to help other kids when they argue. I'll learn special techniques and everything." Emily's excitement was contagious. Richard watched how his daughter's eyes sparkled as she talked about the opportunity. "Do you think you can handle it?" Richard asked. "Of course I can, Dad. I already do it sometimes. Now it'll just be more official." Emily's confidence stood in stark contrast to Richard's constant doubts about her. Once again, he realized the problem lay with him, not his daughter. That night, Richard made an important decision. He stopped shadowing Emily. Instead, he chose to talk openly with her about her activities and show genuine interest in what she did. The change wasn't easy. Richard had to fight years of overprotective instincts. But little by little, he began to see the fruits of his new approach. Emily began sharing more about her day at school, about her friends, about the people she met along the way. Richard discovered his daughter had a rich and varied social network, far more extensive than he'd imagined. A week later, Richard had an idea. He was at the flower shop where Emily always bought flowers, talking to Mrs. Susan. "You're Emily's father, right?" the florist asked. "She talks about you a lot." "She talks about me here?" "Oh yes. She always says how hard-working her dad is and how proud she is of you." Richard felt a strong emotion. His daughter spoke of him with pride to people he didn't even know. "Mrs. Susan, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How did you meet my daughter?" "Oh, it was about 6 months ago. She passed by the shop, saw me crying, and came in to ask if I was okay. She found out my husband had lost his job and was feeling really down. The next day, she came back with a rose and a little note she wrote, saying everything would be all right." Richard swallowed hard. "And was it?" "It was, yes. My husband got a new job the following week. Maybe it was a coincidence, but I'm sure the good energy your daughter brought here helped." Richard left the flower shop with a heavy heart. His daughter was spreading hope wherever she went, and he had no idea. He decided to make one more stop, at the school. He wanted to talk to the janitor, George, whom he'd heard about. He found the man sweeping the inner courtyard. George must have been around 50, tall and thin, with a naturally melancholic expression. "Excuse me, Mr. George." "Yes, sir." "I'm Richard, Emily's father." The man's face lit up immediately. "Mr. Richard, so nice to meet you. Your daughter is an angel. I wanted to thank you for your patience with her." George stopped sweeping and looked at Richard, confused. "Patience? Mr. Richard, I'm the one who should be thanking you. Your daughter saved me." "How so?" "When my mother passed, I was in a bad way. Couldn't even work properly. Your daughter noticed and started coming to talk to me every day. She brought me flowers, told me funny stories from class. George paused, visibly emotional. But what helped me most was when she offered to teach me how to write my mother's name. I'd never learned to write properly, and I wanted to make a nice little plaque for her grave. And she taught you? She did, with patience like I've never seen. We practiced for 2 weeks, every day after school. When I finally got it right, she clapped like I'd won the lottery. Richard felt his eyes well up. Your daughter has a special gift, Mr. Richard. She sees what people need and acts. There aren't many like her in this world. Richard thanked him and left the school deeply moved. His daughter wasn't just living, she was making a difference in people's lives, and he'd spent 11 years trying to hold her back. That night, Richard had an important talk with Emily. Sweetheart, can I tell you something? Of course, Dad. I found out you help a lot of people. Emily looked surprised. How did you find out? I talked to some of the people you've helped. Mrs. Susan, Mr. George, Mrs. Dorothy. You went looking for them? Emily asked, worried. I did, and you know why? Why? Because I wanted to understand how my daughter became such a special person. Emily blushed. I'm not special, Dad. I just like helping. But that's exactly what makes you special, Emily. Not everyone notices when others need help, and even fewer do something about it. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course. Why do you always worry when I go out alone? The question caught Richard off guard, but he decided to be honest. Because I'm afraid, sweetheart. Afraid of what? Afraid that someone might be unkind to you. Afraid you might get lost. Afraid you might get hurt. Emily thought for a moment. But Daddy, I know how to take care of myself, and there are lots of good people in the world too. I know you do, sweetheart. The problem is sometimes Daddy forgets that. Why do you forget? Richard took a deep breath. How could he explain years of fears and prejudices to a child? Because when you were born, the doctors talked about things that might be hard for you, and I was afraid you wouldn't be able to do things on your own. But I can do things on my own. I know. And I'm sorry it took me so long to realize that. Emily moved closer to her father and hugged him. You don't have to apologize, Daddy. You just wanted to protect me. But now you know I can take care of myself, right? Yes, I do. Then you don't have to worry so much anymore. The simplicity of Emily's logic struck Richard deeply. His daughter had summed up in just a few words the emotional journey he'd been on. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In the weeks that followed, Richard began giving Emily more freedom. He let her go to the corner bakery by herself, then to the pharmacy. Gradually, he expanded the boundaries of where she could go. Each small step was a victory against his own fears, and with every victory, Richard saw how Emily blossomed with her newfound independence. One day, Emily came home with an unexpected proposal. Daddy, can I organize a fundraiser for the stray dogs in the neighborhood? How do you mean, sweetheart? I talked to Mrs. Susan, Mr. George, Mrs. Dorothy, and some others. Everyone wants to help the dogs, but no one has much money. So I thought we could throw a party where everyone brings a little food, and we charge a small fee to get in. The money would go toward food and vaccines. Richard was impressed by how well thought out the idea was. Where would the party be? In the schoolyard. The principal already said it's okay, and Margaret offered to make some sweets to sell too. You've already talked to everyone about this? Yes, I just need your permission. Richard looked at his daughter, seeing in her a natural organizer, a little community leader in the making. You have my permission. More than that, you have my help. Really? Really? How about I take care of the music? I can rent a sound system and hire someone to liven things up. Emily's eyes sparkled. That would be amazing, Daddy. The party was set for a Saturday 2 weeks later. Richard watched in fascination as Emily coordinated the preparations. She assigned tasks, confirmed attendance, and solved logistical problems with impressive ease. Jennifer, who had initially worried about the responsibility, soon realized their daughter had everything under control. Richard, "Have you seen how she's organizing everything?" Jennifer remarked one evening. "I have, and I'm amazed. She has leadership qualities I never imagined, because we never gave her the chance to show them." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Richard was learning, painfully but necessarily, how much he had underestimated his daughter for years. On the day of the party, Richard arrived early at the school to help with the final preparations. He found Emily already there, setting up tables and assigning tasks to volunteers. "Mr. George will handle the entrance," she explained to her father. "Mrs. Susan will be at the dessert stand. Mrs. Dorothy and her sister will help serve drinks." "And what will you do?" "I'll walk around to make sure everything's okay, and thank everyone who came." Richard smiled. Her daughter had naturally taken on the role of host for the event. The party was a resounding success. Far more people showed up than Emily had anticipated. Neighbors Richard didn't even know, school staff, parents of students, local shop owners. Everyone wanted to support the girls' initiative. During the party, Richard overheard several people praising Emily. An elderly woman mentioned how the girl had helped her grandson with his reading difficulties. A young father shared how Emily had comforted his little daughter when she got hurt at the playground. Richard realized his daughter was known and loved by an entire community, and he'd had no idea. At the end of the night, when they counted the money raised, they had collected nearly 3 times more than Emily had projected. The girl was beaming. "Daddy, look how much we got. It'll be enough to vaccinate all the puppies and still have leftovers for 2 months' worth of food. Congratulations, sweetheart. You did an amazing job." "We did, Daddy. You helped too." Richard hugged his daughter, feeling a deep emotion. For the first time, he had been Emily's partner instead of her overprotective guardian. A few days later, the school called again. This time, it was to inform them that Emily had been nominated to receive an honorable mention from the city for her community work. "What do you mean?" Richard asked. "The principal enrolled Emily in a city program that recognizes young citizens who make a difference in their communities," explained teacher Barbara. "The Puppy Party project and all the social work she's been doing caught the attention of the review committee." Richard hung up, moved. His daughter was being officially recognized for her contribution to the community. At 11 years old, she had already done more for others than many adults do in their entire lives. The award ceremony was scheduled for the following week at the mayor's office. Richard, Jennifer, and Emily dressed in their best for the occasion. When they arrived, Richard was surprised to see how many other people had come to support Emily. Mrs. Susan had closed her flower shop to attend. Mr. George had taken time off work. Mrs. Dorothy came with her sister. Several other neighbors and acquaintances were also there. During the ceremony, the mayor gave a speech about the importance of volunteering and civic engagement, using Emily as an example of how one person can make a difference regardless of age. "Emily shows us that citizenship isn't about age, it's about attitude," the mayor said. "At 11 years old, she already demonstrates a sense of social responsibility that should inspire us all." When Emily was called to receive her recognition plaque, she stepped up to the podium with ease. The mayor asked her to say a few words. "Thank you for this honor," Emily began. "But I didn't do anything special. I just tried to help people when they needed it. I think everyone should do that." She paused and looked at Richard in the audience. "I want to thank my dad, who learned to let me grow, and my mum, who always taught me to be kind to others, and Margaret, who teaches me important things every day." Richard felt his eyes well up. His daughter was thanking him for learning to give her freedom. It was a recognition he wasn't sure he deserved, but it touched his heart deeply. After the ceremony, there was a small reception. Richard watched Emily mingling with the adults, speaking confidently and thanking each person for coming. A local journalist approached him. "Are you Emily's father?" "Yes, I am." "May I ask you a few questions for a story about her?" Richard agreed, curious about what she would ask. "How do you feel seeing your daughter recognized like this?" "Proud, very proud." "Did you always know she had this calling to help others?" The question touched on the most sensitive point for Richard. He could give a diplomatic answer, but he decided to be honest. "To be honest, no. It took me a while to recognize my daughter's abilities. For a long time, I focused more on the limitations she might have than on the potential she truly possesses. And what changed your perspective? She did, by showing me every day that she's far more capable than I ever imagined. The journalist noted his answers, seemingly satisfied with his sincerity. On the way home after the ceremony, Richard reflected on the journey he had taken over the past few months. From being an overprotective, limiting father, he had transformed into a partner who supported his daughter's dreams. "Emily," he said in the car, "I want to ask you something." "What is it, Dad?" "I want you to always tell me when you want to try something new, even if it's something that makes me nervous at first. I promise I'll try to support you." "Really? You promise?" "I promise." "Then can I tell you something I want to do?" Richard felt a twinge of anxiety, but forced himself to stay calm. "Go ahead." "I want to learn how to cook better, so I can teach other kids. I think it would be fun to have a group where we cook together and talk about important things." The idea was surprisingly mature and well thought out. "Where do you want to do this?" "I thought we could use our own kitchen, once a week, just with a few kids from school." Richard glanced at Jennifer in the rearview mirror. His wife gave a nod of approval. "Sounds like an excellent idea. Should we plan it together?" "Really? You'll help me plan it?" "I will. And I'll join in too if you'll let me." Emily clapped her hands excitedly. "Of course you can join, Dad. It's going to be so much fun." Richard smiled, realizing how different it felt to support his daughter's dreams instead of trying to limit them. It was more work, more challenging, but infinitely more rewarding. In the weeks that followed, Richard helped Emily organize the cooking group project. They decided how many kids would join, which days of the week they'd meet, what dishes they'd make, and how to ensure safety in the kitchen. Richard discovered that his business experience was useful in helping Emily structure her social projects, not to take control, but to teach her planning and management tools she could use. The first meeting of the cooking group was set for a Saturday morning. Emily had invited 5 kids from school all around her age. Richard watched in fascination as his daughter led the group. She explained the recipes, assigned tasks, made sure everyone participated, and mediated small conflicts over who would do what. While preparing a chocolate cake, one of the children, a boy named Michael, started crying. "What happened, Michael?" Emily asked, walking over. "I got eggshell in the batter," the boy sobbed. "Now the cake will be ruined." "It won't be ruined," Emily reassured him. "We can pick out the little pieces. Look." With patience, she showed Michael how to use a spoon to remove the shell fragments from the batter. Then she explained that mistakes happen, and what matters is learning how to fix them. Richard watched from the kitchen doorway, amazed by his daughter's emotional maturity. She was developing leadership and teaching skills that many adults lacked. At the end of the morning, as the children left, each carrying a slice of the cake they'd made together, Emily sat down with Richard at the kitchen table. "Did you like the first meeting?" Richard asked. "I loved it. What about you?" "I was impressed. You have a real talent for teaching." "You think so?" "I'm sure of it. I saw how you helped Michael when he got nervous, and how you explained things to everyone." Emily smiled, pleased with the compliment. "Daddy, can I tell you a secret?" "Of course." "I always wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't know if I could." "Why didn't you know?" "Because people always say I'm different, and I didn't know if different people could be teachers." The confession hit Richard like a punch to the gut. His daughter had internalized limitations based on what others said about her. "Emily," Richard said, holding his daughter's hands, "you can be anything you want to be. Being different doesn't mean being less capable." "You really think so?" "I'm sure of it. In fact, you know what I think. I think you'll be an amazing teacher, precisely because you're different. You see the world in a special way, and that helps you understand how to help people better." Emily's eyes filled with happy tears. "Thank you for saying that, Daddy. I've wanted to share this dream with someone for a long time." "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I was afraid you'd say it was impossible." Richard felt a deep ache in his chest. His daughter had kept a dream to herself out of fear of her parents' reaction. How many other dreams had she hidden over the years? "Emily, I promise you this. From today on, you can tell me any dream you have. and I'll do everything I can to help you make it come true. Even if it's a really big dream? Especially if it's a really big dream. That night, Richard talked to Jennifer about his conversation with Emily. She wants to be a teacher, he told her. How wonderful. Then why do you look so worried? Because she was afraid to tell us, because she thought we'd say it was impossible. Jennifer sighed. Richard, we've raised a daughter who's afraid to dream big. That hurts. It really does. But now we can change that. How? By supporting all her dreams, showing her we believe in her, helping her see there are no limits to what she can achieve. Jennifer agreed. From that day on, they would make a conscious effort to encourage Emily to dream big. A few months later, Emily came to them with a new idea. Daddy, I want to sign up for a theatre class. Richard felt the automatic urge to worry. What if she got nervous on stage? What if other kids made mean comments? What if... But he took a deep breath and pushed the fears aside. That sounds great. Why do you want to take theatre? Because my English teacher said theatre helps with shyness and speaking in public, and I thought it would be useful if I'm going to be a teacher someday. Emily's logic was flawless. She was thinking strategically about her future. Where's the class? At the Community Arts Centre. It's a special class for kids of all ages and abilities. Let's sign you up then. Really? Really? More than that. I want to attend every performance. Emily hugged her father tightly. Thank you for believing in me, Daddy. Thank you for teaching me to believe. The theatre class was another revelation. Emily discovered she had a natural talent for acting and a surprising stage presence. In the first performance, she played the role of a wise tree who advised the other characters. Richard watched from the audience, moved to see his daughter shine on stage. She delivered her lines with clarity and conviction, conveying wisdom in a way that touched everyone. After the show, several people approached Richard to praise Emily. Your daughter is a natural talent, the theatre teacher said. She has a very special presence on stage. She always has, Richard replied. I just took too long to see it. Over the months, Richard continued discovering new facets of Emily. She began writing short stories to read to the younger children at school. She organized a book donation drive for the community library. She started a gardening club, where she taught other kids how to plant and care for plants. Each new project surprised Richard. His daughter wasn't just full of initiative and creativity. She had a worldview rooted in the idea that there's always something you can do to improve others' lives. One day, Richard got a call from the mother of one of Emily's friends. Mr. Thompson? This is Amanda, Tyler's mom. Hi, Amanda. How are you? I wanted to thank your daughter for what she did for Tyler. What did she do? My son was being bullied at school because of his weight. He came home crying every day. Then one day, Emily stepped in. Richard listened closely. How did she step in? She talked to the kids who were picking on Tyler. I don't know exactly what she said, but the bullying stopped right away. More than that, now Tyler has a group of friends who stand up for him. That's good to hear. Mr. Thompson, your daughter saved my son's self-esteem. I don't know how to thank her enough. Richard hung up with a warm heart. Once again, Emily had used her sensitivity and emotional intelligence to help someone in need. That evening, he talked to her about it. Tyler's mom called me today, Richard began. Emily looked concerned. Did Tyler do something wrong? No. She called to thank you for helping him with the bullying. Oh, that, Emily said, as if it were nothing unusual. How did you handle it? I talked to the kids who were being mean to him. I explained how Tyler felt and asked them to put themselves in his shoes. And it worked? It worked. One of the girls even apologized to Tyler the next day. Richard shook his head, impressed yet again. Emily, you know not everyone can resolve conflicts like that, right? Why not? Because it takes emotional intelligence. You have to know how to talk to people, understand their feelings, and find solutions that work for everyone. But that's not hard. For you, it isn't. But for a lot of people, it is. Emily thought for a moment. Then maybe I can teach others how to do it too. Richard smiled. His daughter was naturally evolving, thinking about how to share her gifts with others. Maybe you can. Not long after, Emily came up with an idea that surpassed all her previous ones. "Dad, I want to organize a special talent show." "Special how?" "A show where only kids who are different in some way can participate. Kids like me, kids with really thick glasses, kids who are too shy, kids who have learning difficulties." The idea was revolutionary and touching. "What's the goal?" "To show that being different doesn't mean being less talented, and to help these kids feel proud of who they are." Richard was silent for a moment, taking in the depth of her proposal. "Emily, that's an amazing idea." "You think so?" "I do. More than that, I think it could change a lot of kids' lives." "So you'll help me organize it?" "Of course I will." The special talent show became the biggest project Richard and Emily ever worked on together. They spent weeks planning, reaching out to parents, talking to the school, and organizing logistics. Richard discovered that working alongside his daughter was one of the most rewarding experiences of his life. Emily had creative and original ideas, while he contributed organizational experience and resources. The show took place in the school gym on a Saturday afternoon. Over 200 people attended, family, friends, and curious members of the community. There were performances of all kinds. A girl with autism played the piano magnificently. A boy who stuttered recited poetry with emotion. A child in a wheelchair danced in a moving way. Emily presented a play she had written herself about acceptance and diversity. During the event, Richard observed not only the children performing, but also the audience's reaction. There were tears, smiles, enthusiastic applause. People were deeply touched by what they saw. At the end of the fair, a father approached Richard. "Thank you for organizing this," said the man, clearly emotional. "Actually, it was my daughter who organized it. I just helped." "Well, then thank her. My son has dyslexia and always thought he was stupid because of it. Today, he performed here and saw that he can be talented in his own way. This will change his life." Richard felt a deep emotion. Emily's project was truly transforming lives. At the end of the event, as they were packing up, Emily sat beside her father. "Dad, thank you for helping me with the fair. I'm the one who should thank you for letting me be part of it. You know what I liked most today?" "What?" "Seeing how happy people were, and seeing how the kids who performed left here more confident." Richard looked at his daughter, seeing in her a young woman who had discovered her life's purpose, using her talents to empower others. "Emily, you have a very special gift." "What?" "You see the best in people, and you help them see the best in themselves." "You think so?" "I'm sure of it. And you know what else? I think you'll spend your whole life doing this." "That'd be nice, wouldn't it?" "It'd be wonderful." That night, when they got home, Richard reflected on everything that had happened over the past few months. He had started as an overprotective father, spying on his daughter out of fear that she couldn't take care of herself. He had discovered an extraordinary girl who not only took care of herself, but also cared for many others. A child who saw the world with compassionate eyes and acted with a wisdom that surprised adults. Most importantly, he had learned that true love isn't about shielding someone from the world, but giving them the tools to flourish in it. "Jennifer," he said to his wife that night, "do you remember when Emily was born and we were afraid for her future?" "I do." "I was afraid of the wrong things." "What do you mean?" "I was afraid she wouldn't be able to adapt to the world. But really, the world is lucky to have her." Jennifer smiled and held her husband's hand. "She really is special, isn't she?" "Yes, but not in the way I thought. She's special because she has a huge heart and amazing emotional intelligence. She's special because she sees possibilities where others see limitations. And you've changed a lot too, Richard." "How so?" "You've learned to see our daughter for who she really is, not how your fears said she should be." Richard agreed. The journey had transformed not only his relationship with Emily, but also his own way of seeing the world and people. A few months later, Richard got a surprise. Emily came home from school with a paper in her hand, beaming with joy. "Dad, look." "What is it, sweetheart?" "The school wants me to be a student ambassador at the city's Inclusive Education Conference." Richard read the paper. It was an official invitation for Emily to represent the voices of students with special needs at an important city event. That's amazing, Emily. I'll get to talk about how education can be better for all kids. And what will you say? I'll talk about how important it is for teachers to believe in their students and how kids who are different can teach important things to everyone. Richard was moved. Her daughter was being invited to influence public education policies. At 12 years old, she would be an active voice in building a more inclusive future. The conference was held in the City Hall auditorium. Richard and Jennifer were in the audience, eager to hear what Emily had to say. When it was her turn to speak, Emily stepped up to the podium with confidence. She was wearing a blue dress Jennifer had bought especially for the occasion and held a paper with her speech notes in her hands. "Good morning," she began, her clear voice echoing through the auditorium. "My name is Emily Thompson, and I'm here to talk about how to make education better for all children." Richard glanced at the audience. Everyone was attentive, some leaning forward to listen more closely. "I have Down syndrome," Emily continued, "and for a long time people looked at me and first thought about all the things I couldn't do, but I've discovered I'm capable of so much more than anyone imagined." She paused, scanning the crowd. "I organize social projects. I help resolve conflicts between kids. I teach others. I do theater. I write stories. I take care of abandoned animals. I comfort adults who are sad." The list of activities drew murmurs of admiration from the audience. The difference wasn't that I changed. The difference was that the people around me changed how they saw me. When they started believing in me, I started believing more in myself. Richard felt his eyes well up. His daughter was eloquently articulating the journey their whole family had taken. "So I ask you, the people who decide how education works in our city, look at children who are different and see first what they can do. Give them opportunities to show their talents, and teach other kids that being different is normal and beautiful." Emily looked directly at Richard in the audience. "My dad was once afraid to let me grow up, but when he learned to trust me, he discovered I was much stronger than he ever imagined. I ask you to trust special kids too." The auditorium erupted in applause. Richard stood, clapping with tears streaming down his face. His daughter had turned her personal story into a powerful message for social change. After the speech, many people approached Emily to congratulate her. Educators, parents, city officials, they all wanted to learn more about her projects and ideas. Richard watched as his daughter confidently spoke with important adults in the city, answering questions, explaining her views, and suggesting solutions to complex problems. "Mr. Thompson," a woman approached Richard. "Yes?" "I'm the coordinator for inclusive education at the city department. I wanted to congratulate you on the extraordinary daughter you have." "Thank you, but all the credit is hers." "Not just hers. From her speech, it's clear you've learned to support her dreams. That makes all the difference." Richard was moved by the comment. His transformation as a father was being publicly recognized. On their way home after the conference, the family stopped at an ice cream shop to celebrate. Emily chose a chocolate ice cream and sat between her parents. "How did it feel speaking to so many important people?" Jennifer asked. "It felt good. I think I said everything I wanted to say." "You spoke wonderfully," Richard said. "I'm so proud of you." "Daddy, can I tell you something?" "Always." "When I was on stage looking at all those people, I remembered how much you've changed, and I thought, if you could change, other people can too." Richard swallowed hard, touched by her words. "And that gave you the courage to speak?" "It did. Because I thought, if my dad learned to believe in me, I can teach others to believe in special children too." Emily's simple yet powerful logic moved Richard once again. His daughter was using their family's transformation as inspiration to promote greater social change. That night, Richard wrote a long email to his brother, who lived in another state, sharing the journey he had taken with Emily. He recounted his discoveries, his changes, his daughter's projects, and her speech at the conference. "I spent 11 years trying to protect my daughter from the world," he wrote, "only to realize it was she who was protecting the world, making it kinder, more inclusive, more human. She taught me that limitations aren't in people, but in how we see them." A few weeks later, Richard received an emotional reply from his brother, who shared his own experiences with his teenage son and how Emily's example had inspired him to change his parenting approach. Richard realized their family's story was inspiring others. The transformation that had begun with him following Emily behind a tree had become a wave of change touching other families. On Emily's 13th birthday, Richard gave a special speech during the celebration. "My daughter," he said, raising a glass of soda in a toast. "2 years ago, I thought my role was to protect you from the world. Today, I know my role is to support you so you can change the world." "Dad, you're exaggerating," Emily said, laughing. "I'm not. You really are changing the world, one project, one person, one dream at a time." Richard looked around the room, seeing all of Emily's friends and acquaintances. Mrs. Susan was there with a bouquet of flowers. Mr. George had brought a drawing he'd made for her. Mrs. Dorothy came with her sister and a homemade cake. The kids from the cooking group brought a collective gift. Friends from school, theater, and social projects. The room was full of people whose lives had been touched by Emily in some way. A network of relationships built on kindness, empathy, and a genuine desire to help. "Emily," Richard continued, "you taught me that true love isn't holding on, it's letting go. It's not protecting, it's empowering. It's not limiting, it's supporting dreams." He paused, looking directly at his daughter. "Thank you for teaching me to be a better father. Thank you for showing me you didn't need to be protected from the world. The world needed to meet you." The party went on late into the night, filled with music, dancing, and laughter. Richard watched Emily move among the guests, talking to each person, thanking them for coming, making everyone feel special and included. Later, when the guests had left and they were clearing the last dishes, Emily approached her father. "Dad, thank you for your beautiful speech. I meant every word, sweetheart. Can I tell you a birthday secret?" "Of course." "I know you followed me in those early days." Richard turned red, embarrassed. "You knew?" "I did. But I didn't say anything because I understood you were scared." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I thought if you saw me helping people, you'd realize I could take care of myself." The wisdom and compassion behind Emily's strategy left Richard speechless. His daughter had consciously let him discover her abilities, knowing it was the best way to help him overcome his fears. "You're amazing, Emily. I learned from you, Dad. You taught me that love means caring for the people we love. But you taught me that caring sometimes means giving freedom." They embraced in the middle of the messy kitchen, father and daughter, united by a journey of growth and discovery that had transformed them both. Months later, Richard received a phone call that would once again change the course of things. It was from a publishing house, interested in releasing a book about their family's story. "Mr. Thompson, we're from Hope Publishing. We learned about your daughter's story through an article and would like to propose publishing a book." "A book?" "Yes. The story of how an overprotective father learned to support the dreams of his special daughter and how she became a young agent of social change." Richard was surprised by the offer, "But our story is just our story." "Mr. Thompson, stories like yours inspire other families. There are many parents who go through the same things you did, and many children like Emily who need support to flourish." Richard discussed the proposal with Jennifer and Emily. To his surprise, Emily was excited about the idea. "Daddy, if our story can help other families, we have to write the book. Are you sure?" "Yes. Just imagine how many moms and dads could learn from what we went through." Richard agreed to write the book on one condition: Emily would be the co-author. The publisher immediately accepted. The two spent the following months working together on the writing. Richard shared his perspective as a father, his discoveries, his transformations. Emily wrote about her feelings, her projects, her dreams. The process of writing the book became yet another opportunity for father and daughter to connect deeply. They talked about moments from the past, reflected on their journey, and considered the lessons they'd learned. The Father Who Learned to Let Go, a story of love and discovery, was released a year later. The book became a success, not just in sales, but in the impact it made. Richard and Emily began receiving letters from families all across the United States, sharing how their story had inspired changes in their own lives. Parents who decided to give their special children more freedom. Kids who found the courage to pursue their dreams. Educators who changed their approach in the classroom. The book was nominated for several literary awards in the non-fiction category, and Richard and Emily were invited to speak across the country. At one of these talks in Boston, a mother stood up in the audience during the Q&A. "Emily, my daughter also has Down syndrome. She's 8 years old, and I'm so afraid to let her do things on her own. What advice would you give me?" Emily, now 14, answered with the confidence of someone who had matured through real-life experiences. "I understand your fear. My daddy was really scared too. But I've learned that when people believe in us, we become stronger. Start slow, with little things, and let your daughter show you what she's capable of." "But what if she gets hurt?" "If she gets hurt, she'll learn to take better care of herself, and you'll be there to help. But if she never tries, she'll never discover what she can do." Richard watched his daughter answer the question with a maturity and wisdom that still amazed him. Emily had become a young woman who not only overcame her own limitations, but dedicated her life to helping others do the same. After the talk, while signing books, Richard reflected on everything that had happened. He had started as a successful businessman who felt like a failure as a father. He had discovered that the failure was in how he saw his daughter, not in his daughter herself. Now, 3 years after that first day he decided to follow Emily, he was the co-author of a book that inspired families, the father of a young woman who influenced public policies, and a person who had learned to see the world through more compassionate eyes. Most importantly, he had discovered that his daughter wasn't special despite Down syndrome, but that her unique way of seeing and interacting with the world made her special. The difference wasn't a limitation to overcome, but a gift to celebrate. On the flight back to Chicago, Emily fell asleep, leaning on her father's shoulder. Richard looked at his daughter's serene face and felt deep gratitude for everything she had taught him. He had started out thinking he needed to protect her from the world. He had discovered it was the world that needed her protection, her kindness, her inclusive vision, her ability to see potential where others saw limitations. Emily had grown into an extraordinary young woman, not despite her differences, but through them. And Richard had grown as a father and as a person, learning that true love isn't about holding on tightly, but giving wings to fly. When they arrived home that night, Richard looked at his daughter one last time before she went to bed. "Emily, thank you for teaching me how to be a father. Thank you for learning, Dad. I love you, sweetheart. I love you too. And Dad? Yes? Thank you for stopping following me in secret and starting to walk beside me." Richard smiled, remembering the man who 3 years ago had hidden behind trees to watch over his daughter. What an incredible journey they had taken together. That night, Richard slept in peace, knowing he had learned the most important lesson of his life. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is having the courage to let go of those we love so they can discover what they're truly capable of. And Emily would continue her journey, touching lives, transforming communities, proving every day that being different is, in fact, being extraordinary. The end of the story. Now, tell me what you thought of this story and where you're following us from. If you have something special to share, leave us a heartfelt comment. Do you believe Richard made the right decisions along the way? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories.